Welcome to The Explainer. We're here to break down the big, complex stuff. And today, we're tackling a massive shift happening in the world of software. We're talking about why programmers are basically handing their keyboards over to AI, and why it's working out so well, even when, and this is the crazy part, they don't actually trust it.
All right, let's get right into it. The world of software development is looking at this, well, it's a huge contradiction. You've got developers grabbing onto AI coding tools faster than pretty much any new tech we've ever seen. But at the same time, they're getting more skeptical about the code that these tools spit out. So how on earth can both of those things be true at the same time?
And you can see it right here. It's really fascinating. You have these two trends just going in completely opposite directions. AI tool adoption, it's skyrocketing. Trust in what those tools create, it's falling. And that is the puzzle we are going to unpack today. Why is an entire profession running full speed towards a tool it seems to trust less and less every day?
Yeah, and make no mistake, this is not some small niche trend. The data we're looking at shows a whole workforce completely changing the way it works. And it's all being driven by this weird mix of genuine excitement and, a pretty healthy dose of suspicion.
I mean, when we say adoption has been explosive, we mean it. Look at this. A whopping 85% of professional developers are using these AI tools on a regular basis. And more than half of them, 51%, are using these things every single day. This isn't some side experiment anymore. It's become a core, fundamental part of how a modern developer gets their job done. And yet, while all that is happening, this is also happening. Almost half of them, 46%, say they actively distrust the accuracy of the code these tools are creating. And get this, that number is actually growing. Just a year ago, it was only 31%. So it's like the more they use it, the more they see just how flawed it can be.
So clearly, this isn't just blind faith. Oh no. Developers are super aware of where these tools fall short. In fact, 2/3 of them say their biggest frustration is getting code that's almost right. Just broken enough to cause a real headache. And almost half of them say that debugging the AI's mistakes can actually take longer than just writing the code themselves from scratch. That right there shows you the huge gap between the hype and what it's really like to use these things day in and day out.
So let's talk about that hype, because it all started with these incredible promises of productivity we all heard about. The marketing promise to basically give developers superpowers. But as it turns out, the real-world results, well, they were a lot more complicated.
And the hype was huge. I mean, early industry studies, like a really big one from GitHub, were claiming that developers could code up to 55% faster. 55%. That's not just a small bump, that's a revolutionary leap in productivity. And that, right there, is what really drove that first massive wave of people jumping on board.
But then the academics got involved. And the most rigorous academic study on this found the exact opposite. When researchers put experienced developers into a controlled lab setting, they were actually 19% slower when they used the AI tools. But here's the wild part. Those same developers felt like they were 20% faster. So you have this massive gap between how fast you feel you're going and how fast you're actually going. And a gap that big, it needed a name.
And the name they came up with was perfect. Vibe coding. It just perfectly captured this idea of accepting whatever the AI gives you because it just kind of feels right, without actually doing the hard work of reading it, understanding it, and making sure it's correct. It was such a spot-on description of this new behavior that Collins Dictionary actually named it their word of the year.
But professionals, they draw a really sharp line in the sand here. As the technologist Simon Willison points out, look, using an AI to generate code isn't the problem. The problem is skipping the verification step. He says if you review it, you test it, and you understand what the AI actually did, well, that's not vibe coding. That's just called software development. You're just using a new tool. And this idea gets right to the heart of how they manage all this risk.
So that begs the question, right? How can an entire profession use tools they don't really trust without everything just descending into chaos? Well, it turns out they have a secret weapon. A kind of superpower that almost no other profession has when they're trying to deal with stuff an AI made up.
And here it is. It's actually a really simple idea. You can run a piece of code. You can execute it and see if it actually works. Think about it. A lawyer can't run a legal brief to see if the cases it mentions are real. A doctor can't just compile a diagnosis to see if it's correct. But code is different. It's objective. It's either right or it's wrong, and you can usually find out in a matter of seconds.
And this is a great illustration of the built-in safety net that software engineering has always had. It's a process with multiple layers. First, the AI generates the code.
But then a compiler instantly checks it for any basic mistakes. After that, a whole suite of automated tests run to make sure the logic is sound. And only after it's passed all of those checks does a human engineer even look at it. So, most of the mistakes get caught way before they have a chance to do any real damage.
Now just think about the legal world for a second. When Stanford researchers asked an AI about legal questions, it just made stuff up, what we call hallucinating, up to 88% of the time. There are almost 1,000 documented cases of lawyers submitting legal documents to a court with citations that an AI just completely invented. That just goes to show you what a unique, almost magical advantage programmers have.
So because they have this incredible ability to safely manage the AI's output, AI isn't really replacing developers. No, it's something different. It's totally changing the nature of their job. You could say they're moving away from the keyboard and up to the whiteboard, from being a builder to being an architect.
Yeah, their work is really shifting away from the nitty-gritty, hands-on typing of code and more towards high-level strategy and basically managing a team of AI agents. The old job, it was a lot of writing repetitive boilerplate code and doing manual testing. The new job, it's all about designing complex systems, having the good judgment to know if the AI's work is any good, and, maybe most importantly, learning how to talk to the AI effectively. So, what this all boils down to is that the most valuable skills for a developer are no longer about how fast you can type code. Nope. It's about thinking, it's about planning, it's about ensuring quality. Things like high-level system architecture, security, really understanding the business needs. These are all deeply human skills that an AI just can't replicate. It's about being the adult in the room.
You know, this quote from the former CEO of GitHub, Thomas Dohmke, just nails it. He said, "The developer of the future is not a code typist. They're the creative director of code." And that's exactly it. The job is being elevated. It's less like being a craftsperson at a workbench and more like being a director on a film set. You're orchestrating these AI agents to bring your vision to life instead of hammering out every single line yourself.
But look, data and charts and trends, they only tell you part of the story. To really understand what this shift feels like, we have to listen to the people on the front lines, the ones actually living through it. Because this whole revolution feels very, very different depending on where you're standing.
For a lot of experienced developers, guys like the writer Paul Ford, this new world is it's incredibly exciting. He talks about it feeling like he's unlocked these new superpowers, that he can build these huge, valuable projects just for fun over a weekend. It's this feeling of pure, untapped potential.
But for the people just starting out, the ones at the beginning of their careers, the feeling can be the complete opposite. This quote from a junior engineer, it just captures this sense of loss, almost like grief. They feel like the craft they spent years trying to master has just been commoditized, made available to anyone with a credit card. And for them, the path forward feels incredibly uncertain.
And that really brings us full circle, back to our key takeaway, that paradox we started with, the high adoption and the low trust. It turns out it's not really a contradiction at all. In fact, it's the signature of a profession that has actually figured it out. The winning strategy, the playbook, is this: use these incredibly powerful tools aggressively, but trust what they give you very cautiously. And most importantly, lean hard on that verification superpower to check absolutely everything.
But this leaves us with one last and really critical question about the future. This whole new world seems to work great for senior developers, the ones who already have years of experience to be those creative directors. But what about the next generation? How does someone new learn to spot bad code if they never really get the chance to write good code from scratch? It's a huge question, and right now, the path forward for junior developers is anything but certain.